In this video, I am celebrating National Peach Month. I am taking these sweet peaches, the fruits of the season, and I'm making a Baltimore peach cake. But before we get into that, if you're new to my channel, I'm Denise Jordan, and I teach women to make wise home, health, and beauty decisions. So if you want to learn more about running a household, subscribe. Or if you want to see reviews about products that can benefit you in your home, subscribe, because I do videos on those topics all the time. So hit that subscribe button and tap that little bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Let's jump into this sweet peach treat. I have been thinking about what I wanted to make to celebrate National Peach Month, and so I researched a few different recipes and I came across a Baltimore peach cake. I have heard of this cake before, but I've never actually made one. Usually what I tend to do is make a peach cobbler or a peach pie and let it go at that. But this time I wanted to be a little bit more adventurous and make a Baltimore peach cake. So hang in there with me as I create this Baltimore peach cake. I found the recipe on a site called Food Wishes, and Chef John made it look so easy. So we'll see how easy it is for me. So before I forget, let me take this opportunity to remind you that this video and a whole host of others are part of a collaboration hosted by the Sister Circle. It is the Peach Dessert Challenge, and we just thought it would be fun to celebrate National Peach Month by hosting a Peach Dessert Challenge for 2019 and invite all of the YouTube creators and subbies out there to join us in showing off their peach desserts. So now, what the heck is the Sister Circle? Well, the Sister Circle is a group of like-minded women who have banded together to support one another to help our YouTube channels grow. Simple as that. We just show love and support for the other ladies. We share tips and information on how we can grow our YouTube channels one subscriber at a time. I am really excited to get this recipe started. I have not made anything that required active dry yeast in years, and I'm hoping I don't kill it while I'm trying to get this recipe going. So the first thing I'm going to do is add some sugar to this bowl, and then I'll add my active dry yeast. And now I'm going to add my warm milk. I've got 1.25 cups of warm milk, and now I'm going to whisk that around. So the milk should be warm, about 100 degrees, but not hot. So now I'm going to add 1 beaten egg. We'll get all these wet ingredients in. So 1 beaten egg. And some melted butter. And now we'll just whisk all that together. So now that I've got my wet ingredients in and I can tell that the sugar has dissolved, I'm going to start to add my flour, and I'm just going to add it a little at a time. One of the things that Chef John said, when you're making a recipe that you've not tried before, that you want to add your flour just a little at a time, just in case it's a little too much. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just add it a little at a time. And then one of the other things that he said was, this is, even though it's called a Baltimore sheet cake, that it's more like a sweet bread than actually a cake. So I'm really kind of excited about that. I'm thinking this is going to taste great with coffee. And in case you're wondering about this mixing bowl, I don't use it very often, but I have had this mixing bowl. It was probably an actual wedding gift. I mean, who knows, I've had it so long. One of those vintage ones you really don't see very often anymore. And I thought it would be perfect for this particular recipe because I've got to let it sit and rise in the bowl. So I thought this bowl has enough depth to allow it to rise. And it's starting to thicken up now. And I can smell that buttery flavor, so it smells pretty good. And you know, it only has about 1/3 cup of sugar in it, so I can see why it's going to be more like a bread than a cake. This yeasty smell reminds me of when I was a little girl, and whenever I went to my grandma's house, it just always smelled of baking. Okay, that's the last of the flour. But she made the best yeast rolls. Well, her friend Mrs. Harrison made the best yeast rolls, but Grandma made a lot of rolls and other things too. But her house always smelled of yeast and baking, and she had the best pound cake recipe. So this smell is reminding me of that just a little bit. Okay, I got all this in. Looks like it's pretty well mixed together, and I think it looks pretty good. So the last thing I added was my salt, and it just seems odd not to add the salt in the beginning with the dry ingredients, but Chef John suggested adding it later so that you don't kill the yeast. It just seems odd, and I gotta make sure I get that mixed in. I think the next time I try this, I'm gonna add the salt with the dry ingredients. It did need that salt though. I'm one of those people that like to taste my dough, even though I know you shouldn't. And I love this bowl because it's got these little ears on it, so I can like grasp the ears if I need to, if I want to move it around or whatever. Okay, so I think I've got everything mixed up pretty good. So I'm going to just let it sit here in the bowl now for a little bit. Now that my dough is ready, I'm going to just cover this with a damp towel. So I've got this little tea towel here. I'm just going to put over the top of it. So I think what I'll do is I'll just sit it on top of the oven on that little warming spot and just let it sit here in a warm place for about an hour and a half till it doubles in size. So while I'm waiting for my dough to rise, I'm going to go ahead and slice up my peaches, and then I'll just set them in a bowl in the fridge with some saran wrap over them until I'm ready to put them on top of the cake. I decided not to peel them because one of the things that Chef John said was that once it's baked, you won't even notice it. And then of course, there's always a little bit of fiber that we can always enjoy. So we'll just see how that works. Now, if I was making peach cobbler, of course, I would peel them. But for this Baltimore peach cake, I'm not going to peel them, and we'll see how well I like it that way. And if I decide that I would rather have peeled them, then the next time I make it, I'll make sure to do that. So let's go ahead and get these sliced up. I picked these peaches up at Kroger's, and they are just absolutely beautiful. And what I will usually do is just kind of find a place, a little seam to cut, and then you just kind of give it a little twist, and they come apart like that. And then you can just take a spoon and there you have it. And I'm just going to cut the peach into slices. These peaches are so good, I couldn't help but to bite one. They are so sweet. I can't wait to see how they taste on top of the cake. So it's been almost an hour and a half that my dough has been rising. So I thought I'd go ahead and just butter this baking dish so that it's ready. And I tell you what, I was hard pressed not to look at that dough because like I said, it has been a very long time since I baked anything with yeast. So I am really excited about that. And I just thought what better thing to make for peach season than a Baltimore peach cake, because I know a lot of other people are going to be making peach cobblers. So I thought, let's try something a little different. Okay, this is good and buttered. So now let's get that dough off the stove and take a peek at it. I'll set this aside. Oh wow, look at that. Oh my. The dough has risen to almost half the size of the bowl. So I didn't kill my yeast. I'm so excited. It's looking pretty darn good. I mean, just look at that. Oh wow. So what I need to do now is transfer this dough into my buttered dish and then smooth it out so that it goes to all the corners. So now let me do that. We're going to turn this all into this dish. The dough's quite sticky. And I like the fact that this bowl has these ears on it. I mentioned that earlier, but yes. And it calls for a 9 by 13 baking dish. And this is about that size. So now I'm going to tug this to the edges of the dish. I got to smooth it out as best I can to all the edges. Well, it's certainly not like any cake batter I've ever seen, so I see why Chef John says it's more like a bread, a sweet bread. Okay, I think I've got it pretty even. Okay, so I've got this nicely smoothed out all over. So now I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, and I'm going to let it sit for about 30 to 45 minutes until it doubles in size. And then once it does that, we'll top it with peaches. It's been about 45 minutes and my dough has doubled in size. I am just so excited. I cannot tell you how excited I am. I just remember when I was a little girl and my grandma's house just always smelled of yeast and baking. And now my house is smelling the same way. So I'm feeling quite nostalgic. And I'm also very proud of how nice this looks. This just looks amazing. So what do I need to do next is now layer the top of it with my peaches. So let me do that. And I'll just lay these peaches on top and push it down slightly. Now I'll just push these down just a little bit. So now I am going to brush the tops with some melted butter, about 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And then I'll sprinkle it with some turbinado sugar. Just gives it a nice little color, nice little glaze. That's that sugar in the raw, that crystal sugar that you get at Starbucks that you can put on your coffee. And now we can just pop it in the oven, and it's going to bake for about 35 to 40 minutes on 350 degrees. Can't wait until it comes out. I'll tell you what though, this baking with yeast is more than a notion. I forgot how long it takes to make a dish with yeast, because you've got to, activate the yeast, and then you've got to let it rise, and then you got to stir it down, and you got to let it rise again, and you got to bake it. But I'm sure it will be well worth the wait. So a toothpick in the center comes out clean. So it ought to be done. It's pretty brown on the top though. I got it out, I think just in time. I set the timer for 42 minutes because Chef John said cook it for 40 to 45. But you know, everybody's oven is a little bit different. So I set mine for 42 and it's only been about 37 and I think it needs to come out. So let me bring you up a little bit closer so you can see it, and then I need to brush it with some apricot jam. So here it is. This is what it looks like. And it's pretty brown on top, but it looks pretty darn good. So let me get the glaze on it, and then once it cools off a little bit, we'll give it a taste. Now we're going to brush this with some Apricot Preserves, and oh my goodness, that can only add to the deliciousness. I just put a little bit of Apricot Preserves in a dish and diluted it with a little water so that I could make it spreadable. And I had about 3 tablespoons of preserves, but I could probably use a little more. And you know, when you sprinkle it with that turbinado sugar, which is brown, it does add a little bit more color to the top of the cake as well. So looking at this all around, it looks pretty good. It's pretty brown around the edges too, so let's hope that's a good thing. Okay, so now let's cut into it. So this is what it looks like, and then here's the edge. So the edge is kind of brown. I don't know if that's too brown or not, but that's what it looks like cut out. Now let's see what it tastes like. Hey, I left part of my peach. I'm gonna get it. All right, that should be right there. Okay. Okay, so taste a little bit of it underneath the peach and with the peach, and we'll see what it tastes like. I can see the consistency of it. It does look a little thick like a bread. It's good. It's not as sweet as I thought it would be, but then I guess I shouldn't expect it to be. There wasn't much sugar in it. So if you've got someone that needs a dessert that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it, this will do it. It's very good. Not the flavor that I would have thought, but then I've never had a Baltimore Peach Cake, so what did I expect? I don't know. I guess I was expecting something more sweeter, more cake-like. And this is not sweet like you would expect a cake to be. But as Chef John said, it's kind of a hybrid between a cake and a bread. So it is more like a bread, more like a sweet bread. The bottom layer is a tad bit crisp, so I probably could have gotten it out of the oven a little bit sooner. The bottom layer reminds me of the bottom layer of the crust you might have on a cornbread. And that's what it reminds me of, a very sweet cornbread, kind of a peach cornbread. And I think this is something my husband would enjoy. He doesn't always like things that are super sweet, and this is not. It's got just a hint of sweetness, and even the addition of the apricot preserves on top doesn't take it over the top, doesn't make it too sweet. But you get that that natural sweetness from the peach. So I like it. Definitely would want a cup of coffee, a cup of hot tea, or even a cup of hot chocolate with this. Well, there you have it. There's my Baltimore Peach Cake. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. And as I said earlier, if you enjoyed this, please head on over to the playlist and see the other desserts that the other ladies have made to celebrate National Peach Month. Oh, now one other thought was that this might be good with ice cream. So let's try that. All right, let's get a taste. It's really good with the ice cream. I really like it. But I think to me it's more like a bread, so probably I wouldn't typically use ice cream with this. I'd probably just have it with coffee or tea. But it is good with the ice cream. And the other thing is I didn't peel the peaches, and you really don't even notice that very much. So you can peel the peaches if you want to, but you wouldn't have to. So the next time I bake it, I think I'll have just a little bit less time in the oven, and I think I'll get a little bit better result. But for my first time making a Baltimore peach cake, I ain't mad at it. I'm thinking it's turned out pretty good. Now, if you liked my peach treat, my Baltimore peach cake, then I think you will certainly enjoy my blackberry cobbler. It is to die for. And then I've got a few lemonade recipes, a blueberry lemonade recipe and a raspberry lemonade. I will link those above and link those below. These videos are actually part of my series, Fruits of the Season. And what I'm trying to do is create something fun, something special from the fruits of the various seasons as they come through. So be sure to come on back as I move into the Thanksgiving season and see what recipes I'm whipping up that you might want to use on your table for Thanksgiving. So once again, I am Denise Jordan, and I am the leader of the Sister Circle, and I invite you to hit the link for the playlist in the description box below and check out all the other sweet treats that you will find, all the other peach treats that you will find for this Peach Dessert Challenge 2019.